Nuggie, you gonna help?
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah. You gonna help with my wrap-up? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Rochelle. I read a variety of books and I also have a disability, and today what we're gonna do is talk about all the books that I met? Did I meet these books? I guess I did. All of the books that I read in the month of January. Now, January I was dealing with a really rough reading slump, and I was finding that some formats were easier for me to read in than others. And although I did technically get a decent amount of books read, honestly, it felt very slumpy, and the time in between finishing books was all over the place. So there were times that I was reading great and then other times that I didn't really touch a book for multiple days. So it was a little bit all over the place, but let's go and take a look at the statistics that usually Storygraph goes and puts together, because that's one of my favorite pieces at looking at my wrap up for every single month. So for the month of January, I read a total of 7 books, and that was around 2,164 pages. That's so satisfying to go and look at. I don't know about you, but at least with me, someone that doesn't like numbers, something about that with how many pages I read is so satisfying. And then 3 of the books were horror, 2 were thrillers, 2 were fantasies, 1 was romance, and 1 was historical. And my average rating was around 3.64 stars. So like I said, it was a little bit all over the place. I didn't really consider last month a really great reading month, if I was completely honest. So what we're going to be doing with this is actually doing the yes, no, or maybe, because to be honest, I don't really remember a lot of these books and I don't know how well I'm going to be able to talk about them. So instead of doing lowest to highest or anything like that and showing my star ratings, we're just going to do yes, no, maybe. And if I do have a summary that I can give for the book, I'm going to do that. But my memory is so hazy for a lot of these books that I don't know how well I can even talk about them. So let's do it in this style. And if you like it, let me know down in the comments below. Or if there's a different style that you like for these type of wrap-up videos, let me know as well. I definitely kind of want to change things up for the year of 2026, because I don't know if doing the star ratings and lowest to highest is really something that is working really well for me, especially with dealing with a weird reading slump. The first book that we're going to talk about is A House with Good Bones by Kingfisher. This one I'd potentially say maybe. It was really good, however, I ended up going and listening to it as an audiobook. I started reading it physically and then I was like, you know what, I want to get this book done with. So I did it through audiobook, and there were some voices that were great, but there were other voices that were kind of meh. And I feel like, at least with the audiobook, I couldn't really tell what the age was supposed to be for a lot of characters, because I feel like everyone aside from the main character was someone that was very elderly. So it didn't matter what the age range was for the character in the book. The narrator just made everyone sound like they were 60 plus. So that was something that was a little bit confusing for my brain to differentiate. So I'd say if you're doing audiobook, definitely a hard maybe. If you're doing physical, probably would go a lot better for you. And this honestly was my first book by Kingfisher. I haven't read anything by them, surprisingly, but I feel like I definitely do want to pick up more of their books. I really did enjoy their writing style, and I think I do have more books by them on my bookshelves, so I'm excited to go and check that out. And yeah, this one definitely was a maybe. Maybe it would have been better if I would have read it physically, but audiobook was what helped get me through it. Then the next book we're going to talk about is actually I, Medusa by Ayana Gray. This one I actually had as an ARC on NetGalley, and it was one of my anticipated reads for the year of 2025. However, I didn't get to read it until 2026, and this one is also going to be a maybe because there's a lot of gray area for me. This book is described as an adult debut fantasy. However, it read very YA for me, maybe more new adult. I think that's the correct term. But a lot of this was frustrating for me because anyone that is familiar with the lore with Medusa, you might have been expecting something a little bit more female rage and a little bit more explicitness, especially with it being an adult debut. This was good, and there were some very important topics, also extremely triggering, so check your trigger warnings. But some things that really frustrated me with this was that it portrayed Medusa as being so naive and not knowing about a lot of adult terms and what was going on and pieces like that. She the author made her basically grow up on an island and learned a bunch of different languages from scrolls that would wash up from shipwrecks. And you got to tell me that, like, these scrolls must be censored, because there's no way that Medusa knew about SA or different things along those terms. Like, she had to learn about it from a goddess. So that honestly is why this frustrates me so much, because Medusa is someone that I hold very close to my heart, and the mythology and lore with her. And so I had extremely high expectations for this book. If you want to know more of my thoughts, I did go and talk about it in a vlog that I will link up here. But that is why I have a maybe here, because there is a lot of gray area with this. It's a book that I feel very conflicted on, because I had those high expectations for it, and it just fell flat in some things and made me extremely frustrated, because I wanted more, especially from our character being Medusa and everything. So yeah, a little bit of a rant. I don't know if we're supposed to go into how much we're defending our reasons for yes, no, or maybe, but I feel like I have to do that. I need to go and establish why I'm standing a certain way on a specific book. So yeah. Then another book I have here is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This was one that I had as an audio arc. I think it's called an ALC from NetGalley, and it was one that I was really excited for. I've read Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and I really enjoyed it, so I had pretty high expectations for this one as well. And this one, I would say yes. It was really well done, and especially if you decide to go and listen to it as an audiobook, it was very immersive. There were certain sound effects that were there, so you really felt like you were almost watching a movie in your head, following along with a character going running or pulling their keys out to unlock the door. So that was really exciting and something I very much enjoyed about this book. And I love with Alice Feeney's thriller books that in some ways you feel like you do have everything figured out, but then towards the end there's something that pops up at the last minute. But she also does this great thing where everything is wrapped up and tied together with a very nice bow at the end of the book, so you're not left with these lingering questions wondering, well, what about this or what about this? Everything gets answered at the end of the book. So I was very pleasantly surprised with how well this book was. I enjoyed it so much, and I do plan on reading more books by Alice Feeney as well. So this one 100% would be yes, and one that I highly recommend, especially if you decide to pick up the audiobook, because I thought it was so much fun. Next is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy, and this one I also listened to as an audiobook. I borrowed it from Libby, and I kind of am leaning around no for this book. It wasn't one of my favorite books by Nat Cassidy. There were some intriguing concepts in this, because the main couple, they're looking for a new home. They don't want to live with their current landlord because he's a bit of a jerk. He's racist, and the list of things that he is piles high, and is just someone that you would not want to be associated with or even have a conversation with. And the wife in this family, she is disabled. She had a recent accident, and because of that, she is wheelchair bound. She's dealing with a lot of things like that and is very depressed. And I will say that something great about Nat Cassidy's books is that he does go and have these really great content and trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, and then his author's note in the end of the book will kind of explain what inspired him to write the story and what inspiration he took from his real life. I'm sure with this book there were a lot of cathartic pieces for him, because he was inspired by some stuff that him and his wife were going through. And I do appreciate having those disclaimers and that additional knowledge about this book, but unfortunately it just didn't go well for me. I knew that there was going to be ableism going into it, but as someone that is disabled and started my online journey with doing a lot of disability advocacy, I really prefer reading more books that go and help promote positive representation towards disabilities. I know that things aren't always going to be positive for people in the disabled community, but I think that a lot of stuff, especially now, we need that positive representation and to show how powerful people with disabilities can be. And so I try to go and read more books that show that more so than the other pieces, although I do like accurate representation where it does show a lot of the low moments that people go through and a lot of the conflicting emotions that they feel. So that's kind of a long tangent, but I feel like yeah, this book was kind of a no for me. It just wasn't my favorite by him. Then another book that I read was actually an arc by Alycia E. Anderson, and this was A Fortnight to Forever. I've read her other series, The Enchanted Isles and The Isle of Embers, and I've raved about this author so much and how much I love her writing style, and I want to read every book that she's written, so I was very excited to go and get the arc for this book. And I feel like with this one, I'm probably going to also put it as maybe, because this is an independent author, and although this book might not work 100% for me, it could work for someone else. So with this book, basically, we have a woman that was cursed by a scorned lover, and I say lover loosely because it was kind of an arranged marriage situation, and she turned this guy down because she did not want to be married to him at all. This king, or soon to be king, had a very scorned ego, and so he went and cursed this woman to basically sleep for, I think, a decade. I can't remember the amount of years that she was supposed to sleep. I'm so bad with numbers. Part of me wants to say 10 years, and then the other part of me wants to say 100 years. I think it was 100 years, but she has to sleep for 100 years, and then she's basically awake for 14 days or a fortnight. And she has to go and achieve this person's quest, whoever she meets up with. She has to help them achieve this goal, and then basically after that, she's asleep for another 100 years. And the only way to break this curse is by two methods. One, getting the king to go and basically retract the curse, or two, having someone fall in love with her, and it has to be mutual. She has to fall in love with them and vice versa. So she has this whole dilemma, and she's basically with this person that is a knight that has been disgraced, and she has to help him achieve his quest. And there's kind of this journey that they all go on and everything, and I think the reason that this one didn't really work out for me was just some of the writing. It really dragged out. We did get to see both characters' perspectives, which I always appreciate, but there was something about the writing style and how it drug out for me. It just felt very, very slow. And I was reading this book originally in December, and unfortunately it was just in such a reading slump that it carried over to the month of January. But also there was a piece too where this woman, she's hundreds of years old. I feel like sometimes her dialogue was too in the know, but then other times she seemed very ancient. And then there were other times she got very flirtatious and was almost doing certain things in public where I'm like, you're centuries old. This doesn't make sense. So the character plot just didn't really line up 100% for me, and so I think that's why I'm a little bit in the middle. I really do love how this author writes, but this book didn't really work 100% for me. Also, I need to drink more tea because I have a little bit of a cold and my throat is very scratchy. Then another book that we ended up reading was The Wives by Tarryn Fisher. I did have this book on my love it or lose it pile, and I just realized I was not going to read this, so I decided to go and borrow a copy from my library, and I listened to it that way. And this book was definitely a hard no for me. The concept of it seemed so interesting because our main character is a wife and her husband has multiple has multiple wives. And it's a concept that makes me curious, but also is something that like I have no desire to ever be a part of. But I just really wanted to know what direction this went in. And we definitely seem to have a very unreliable narrator because we only see things from her perspective and how she's interpreting things. And it was an interesting and wild ride that we went on. However, I did not like the direction that the book took at the end, and I don't want to go too into it because I feel like if I did, that would really give a huge spoiler for the direction things went in. But yeah, I was kind of bummed by this. This had a great concept that could have been amazing, but it just really fell flat for me. So this one is a no, and is also going to be a book that I plan on unhauling. All right, then the last book that we're going to talk about is The Haar by David Sodergren. And this one I actually listened to through audiobook. I believe I actually got this recommendation from my friend Bo, and I'll go and link her channel here as well as in the description. She's one of my really good booktube friends that I made last year, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know her more. So definitely go and show her some love. She reads a lot of horror books, thriller books, and kind of does a little bit of a variety of YA and adult books as well. She also has a great TBR game. All right, that's enough of me raving about her, but honestly, go and check out her channel. But I decided to go and check out this book from her recommendation, and I think I actually requested it through Libby in the month of November for the Dungeons and Book Dragons readathon. However, it had a really long wait list, so I wasn't able to get to it until I think towards the end of December. And this was honestly a quick read. I don't know necessarily if it was a novella, but it was really quick. And the thing I loved about this book was that we had an older female main character. I believe she was already at the point of being retired. I also just realized I forgot to say if this was a yes, no, or maybe. I might say yes, but also kind of leaning towards maybe on this one. So first of all, I will say that the narrator did an amazing job. I loved the accent for the main character and the voices there. This was one of those books where it's almost like I support women's rights and women's wrongs type of thing, because our main character, her husband has basically been assumed to be dead and she is missing him. She's dealing with a lot of different things. There's a billionaire that is trying to get all these people to move away so he can go and build things on their land and basically destroy this beautiful area that is home to so many people. And she's dealing with a lot of these things and reminiscing over her time with her husband. And then she kind of comes across this creature and she feels drawn to it and wants to go and make sure that it lives and doesn't die. And through the process of that, this thing grows into something else and things very much progress. And I was very surprised with the direction. It was really different and I enjoyed it a lot. And I don't know why I lean towards maybe. I just remember vaguely that it wasn't a book that I was like, oh, this is a 5-star read. I love this 100%. It was one where I was like, I enjoy this. This is kind of cool. This is different. And the author's note for this book was also really great and interesting to listen to as well, because the author was inspired by their own grandma. And if you've been here on my channel for a while, you know that my grandma is someone that inspired me to do a lot of the things that I still love and enjoy doing today. So I always have a soft spot for grandmas. But yeah, that is my yes, no, or maybe for my January wrap up. I feel like this still took the same amount of time that my star rating lowest to highest books usually went for wrap-ups. So I don't know, if you liked this, let me know in the comments below. I'm definitely down to do something different. I thought that this was fun because I didn't feel pressured to talk about some books that I honestly couldn't recall anything that happened. And then for the books that I had more of an opinion for, I could talk about those more. So this was kind of refreshing and different and fun. So I enjoyed this a lot and I hope you did too. If you made it to this point of the video and you don't know what to comment, I'd say, we've probably done this before, but I'd say leave a snake for Medusa in the comments. And honestly, I appreciate you all being here. I do have a lot of important links that I will have either in the description or also in the comments, probably a little bit of both. So definitely go and check those as well. And I just appreciate you all for being here. I'm definitely getting out of my funk and I feel like I'm getting a little bit more excited to read books, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. And as always, I want you to remember that you're worthy and capable of amazing things. Bye, friends.